This is the future. Human error. Evolution. This is the future.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Vosk of the VoskCoin YouTube channel, and I'm at a top secret immersion cooling mining farm located in Charleston, South Carolina. Really cool stuff. Let's go check it out. Hey guys, what's going on? It's Vosk. I'm here with Marc of Upgradeya. Top secret mining farm down here in Charleston, South Carolina. That's all the information you'll get other than Marc's story here. You want to tell us just a little bit about your farm and
Sure.
Get into it?
So in 2018, May of 2018, I decided, after working in industry for about 12 years, doing electrical infrastructure, to take the plunge into the crypto space as a full-time job and decided to start up this mining facility. So bought a building locally and renovated it, and got all set up for an open-air space, and also ended up implementing an immersion cooling process that been pretty successful. It took about nine months of kind of a grind to get everything going and to get everything how I wanted it.
I want to say thanks to immersion-systems.io for sponsoring the VoskCoin Mining Farm Tour video series. Without them, this wouldn't have been possible at all. If you watched episode 1 of season 1, then you will have seen us tour Marc's mining farm, where he utilizes Immersion Systems immersion cooling setup. Top quality gear, and Marc was one of their first customers, and so he's one of their oldest customers, and he couldn't be happier with it. Originally made for their own personal mining farms that they've now brought to market. If you want to set up, reach out to them.
And now everything's been pretty stable over really the course of probably about March of 2019. So it's been mainly me. I've used some contractors, and so it's about 3 petahash right now.
Nice. Well, yeah. One of the things that really stands out with your mining farm is the fact that, I mean, obviously you have immersion cooling. That's so cool. What pushed you to go with immersion cooling?
Yeah, so for my situation here in the Charleston area, my power rate's not that great, and just in this part of the state, it's not that great. So what I really needed to do was figure out a way to be as efficient as possible to effectively bring down that power rate. And the best way I could figure out to do that is finding an affordable immersion system, and that kind of became available in mid 2018. And so I pulled the trigger on that, and that's been successful. There's been a little bit of R&D with it, and just kind of figuring out, research and development of figuring out how to really run these things, because there's not a whole lot of implementation to run them from my facility. But it's been a successful project.
And so you have the immersion tanks below, but how come you have the air-cooled setup above that as well? How come you haven't moved to like a full immersion setup?
Right. So when I went to do this project, and we were doing the engineering on just modifying this building for a mining facility, at that time I was planning to do full air-cooled. So I had two floors, a bottom floor and a top floor of air-cooled. And then I'd purchased fans and some of the equipment for my top air-cooled process. And around that time is when I started learning about the immersion. Mm-hmm. And so it started to make sense to me. Really, immersion is going to be the way to go to be profitable long term. In 2018, things were getting really tight with Bitcoin price dropping down into that 3,000 range. Well, really it was 5,000 to 6,000 at that time, but later we saw it dropping down 3,000 range, and that's kind of where I saw my numbers really breaking even, was in that 4 to 5 range, and so I really wanted to set up a facility that could run in that range of price, and so that led me to the immersion, which I still wanted to keep the all the stuff that I had bought for the air-cooled system, and make that as successful as possible. So I installed all that and then went forward with the immersion.
So, Marc, what are the main coins you're mining in your mining farm?
I'm about 90% Bitcoin. I do a little bit of Zcash and a little bit of SIA with the SC1s, and that's about it. I mainly go back to Bitcoin and support Bitcoin. I believe in that system long-term more than the others that I've researched over the years.
And for the Sidecoin and the Zcash, do you hold those at all, or do you convert them into Bitcoin?
In general, I like to convert over to Bitcoin, just to pay power bill and to go into something that I understand the project better. And nothing against those projects, I just don't understand them as well. So I like to support the things that I understand and believe in.
So would you say Bitcoin's your favorite coin?
Yeah, I guess you could call me a little bit of a Bitcoin maximalist.
It's on his desk.
So just a little tip on all the online calculators. When you're using those and you're figuring out what your profits is going to be on a miner, one thing I like to do is take what that number is. Let's just say you're buying an S17, you're going to make $7 a day. Half that number, make it $3.50 for your projected runtime over the next, whatever you're hoping to run, 2 years or so. Typically people like to ROI in a year or two. And that's going to be more your true numbers from what I've experienced. So just a little tip.
Like, would you be comfortable talking about like your power rate or profitability or anything like that? Even
yeah, I can go.
You can go like specific or general.
Yeah, I can give some general numbers on kind of what we deal with in this location for our power rate. So it's hard in this area if you're not industrial, and I'm really not industrial. I'm more of a commercial rate, and at my location to get less than about 6 or 7 cents. And that's about where I am during the winter months. And then in the summer months, which is pretty common throughout the country, throughout the U.S., you'll see these the rates spike for the summer, and I get closer to 8 or 9 cents there. So, that all goes back into why I really wanted to set up my operation to be as efficient as possible, to try to bring down that rate a little bit to be competitive.
When did you get into cryptocurrency or Bitcoin? Like what year? What kind of drew you to it? Why'd you stay in it? And really what pushed you to build a mining farm that you ran a megawatt worth of electric to? I mean, that's not, I don't mean to be mean, Mark, but that's not normal.
See, you think I'm crazy just like my wife does.
We're all crazy here. If you're watching this, you're crazy.
Yeah, so I started to go down this rabbit hole of what is Bitcoin and why would the government not shut it down, and all the questions people ask when they first start to learn about it. Pretty early on, probably in the 2010, 2011 time frame. And so I asked all these questions to the community and to family. I have some family that were kind of into the space at the time, and so we went back and forth trying to figure out, what is this? And the more we went down that rabbit hole, the more we started to believe that this is a long-term system of value and could really be a good way to start to change how value works around the world. And that's really what motivated me. So that was more philosophical, because if you look at those prices back in 2010, 2011, there wasn't a lot of incentive to have your $1 Bitcoin. But we look at that now, and that's kind of where the philosophical ideas back then led into some large financial growth. If you're able to hang on to some of that, if you're in the space at that time. And so, but if you knew anybody back then, and I was smart on some things, and really, when you look back, really poor decisions on other things. But that whole process teaches you a lot too, of just of I guess hodling in some sense.
Good old hodling. So what's the cheapest Bitcoin that you ever bought?
That's a good question.
Were they all just mined?
No, I wasn't into the mining too much until recently. I probably really started getting the mining in 2018. So before then, if I wanted some, you try to buy some. I actually was back, some of you probably remember the empty Gox days, and trying to get any dollar amount to that system so you could buy some, like at the time, expensive $5 Bitcoins and stuff. And so I was able to get a few bucks in there and buy some back then, probably around that $5 range. Wow. And so you got your $10 or whatever in there, and you bought a couple Bitcoins. You're excited. Then you sell them the next week because they're like worth $10 or $20.
Yeah. Mark, you quit your job to go full time into building this mining operation. What compelled you to do that? Because to move from a nice stable job with benefits to being basically a full-time miner, that's a very big leap.
Yeah, it definitely was at the time. It was a huge decision. I had a stable job with a good pay, and I'd been there a long time, and was very comfortable in it for what it was, And there were certainly some people. Brett Garman, we visited his mine earlier.
Blockyard.
At the Blockyard, and that setup, which got me down the road of even considering starting a mining facility when I saw him doing what he was doing on a small scale back then that has been increased to what he has now. And that opened my eyes to think that this is possible. This is something that could actually be achieved. The numbers make sense. So then I kind of went down that process of crunching all those numbers and seeing, how could I do that? And then it's a lot of looking at your cash flow and figuring out, how you make it work for your situation. So finally I was able to figure that out and pulled the trigger.
You did it.
Yeah.
You pulled it, man. So Mark, what were the biggest lessons you learned along your journey, having a build out of this large magnitude?
The biggest things that you find is it's really hard to gauge the amount of cooling you're going to need or I should say air movement in an open cooling process. I mean, I went through an engineering process with mechanical and electrical engineers, but you still seems to I still have a lot of negative pressure in that room, and it's not really quite the way I'd want it. And so it's really important to it's really important to over-engineer that stuff and do it the right way. Is that gonna work?
You got a part-time director here. No, that was good.
Sorry.
So Mark, how many hours would you estimate personally, and then also anything contracted out, just say man hours, went into building this facility? And then to move forward with that question is, now that it's relatively finished, how many hours a week do you actually spend, say, working in your farm, maintenance, upkeep, anything like that?
Yeah, so not in hours, but just I'd probably easier to do months for just kind of building a facility like this. If you are pretty organized and you know what you're doing and you have good contractors, I think you can realistically get a facility up and going in a 6 to 9 month period. Now I'm capable of 1 megawatt here. I'm only using about 1/4 of that, so there's still a little bit more infrastructure I'd have to do to increase that. But the majority of that work was really done in that 6 to 9 months, and then the rest of that can be repeated to expand. If a facility like this, when it's up and running, and especially with the immersion, where you don't, when everything's working properly, there's really not a lot you have to do as far as cleaning and stuff compared to an open air process. So you can pretty much let it go. So there's days where I cannot do too much, and that's not to say there's not things to do, but it can run itself somewhat. What I find is usually it's because I'm putting some off if I'm not doing something, either cleaning miners or cleaning filters, or doing some research on how to make things more efficient, or finding what the new hardware is out there to figure out if there's some smart purchases that you should be increasing efficiency of your operation. And that really comes with the new hardware. So the more you stay on top of that, the more successful you're going to be in the space. And so that stuff never ends. Like most jobs, there's always some things you could be doing, even when your mining facility is running how you want it.
Mark, what is your immersion cooling setup? Did you design this yourself? Did you work with another company? And what motivated you to move with this exact setup?
Yeah, so I found, after doing some research and talking to some people in the space, in the mining space, that a company out of near Dallas, Immersion Systems, and Chase Blackman really helped me out there. And they developed a system that they did a bunch of research and development themselves, and then implemented it themselves. And then he did a post on Reddit that got a lot of attention, and people said, well, could you build this for me? And I was one of those people, and so they decided that they could do that and sell their immersion setup, and I've been really happy with it. So that's definitely somebody you could reach out to if you're looking at getting an immersion system. At least they're good people and share information on what they what they do and what the numbers are, and it might make sense for you.
So there's a lot of different fluids you can use in immersion cooling. The first fluid that often comes to mind for people is mineral oil. But I know you're not using mineral oil. Could you explain, Mark, why you're not using something as basic as mineral oil and what you're using?
Yeah, when you go down this process of looking at how immersion could work and how to keep your issues down on the different materials, Immersion Systems did a lot of that research, so I didn't have to do it, but they tried a lot of different fluids. And what they found was BitCool from Engineered Fluids. They had designed this so that you don't break down a lot of the plastics that you might find on a circuit board or capacitors, and there's little O-rings around capacitors that you need to be all intact for the system for these boards to keep running, and this fluid was designed to not break that stuff down. So that's why I went this way, piggybacking on the research that they had already done for different fluids. And so just be careful if you're using something that's over the counter, or I shouldn't say over the counter, but just like a general mineral oil or something like that, you might find issues in 3 to 4 months where you wouldn't with the right type of fluid. So you pay a little more, but it's worth it to get it right. In this area of in the Charleston area down in South Carolina, we have a space called the Block Yard that I'm a part of a great group of individuals that support these decentralized and open source technologies in the crypto space and just a general tech space. If you're in this area or stop by and are looking for something of that nature, it's been a really good platform for people to learn and expand their knowledge in this space and in the tech space.
Mark, if you had just one piece of advice you wanted to give to anyone viewing this, whether it comes to just crypto in general or mining, or maybe even just a little life advice, because when we were at the Block Yard, Brett was giving all this life advice.
Just do your own research, start small, learn trial and error. It's gonna be way better than any expert. Experts will put you on a wild goose chase. I was overly humble. I should have put some more confidence in my own ability to figure stuff out. I mean, you can still be nice to people. There's people that will take advantage of you if they sense that. So you need to be confident in your abilities.
You got anything for everyone out there?
Yeah, I guess maybe on the life advice side of things, I worked in industry for 12 years and kind of grinded at that 50+ hour weeks. And if there's something that you're passionate about, I found this, and I'm passionate about the crypto space and Bitcoin and now about mining. Go after it and try to find that balance of work and enjoyment and getting outside of work with personal life or family or whatever it is. I think that's started to drift away, in our society some. And so if you have an option or can find an out to kind of find that in your life, go for it. That's what I'd say. It's been good for me.
I like it. Well, awesome, Mark. Thanks so much for having me down at your top secret facility here. And honestly, this is the coolest immersion setup I've ever seen. I haven't seen too many, but it's definitely the coolest one.
Appreciate it.
And also, just another quick plug here is, I don't know if you guys saw this in all the clips earlier, but does Mark not have some of the best wire management you've seen, especially on a farm? It's easy to manage a couple wires, but once you start getting a couple hundred, it's more work.
I definitely appreciate that. A lot of thought and work goes into getting that management to look decent. And so
looks great. It looks great, Mark.
Yeah, there was effort there.
Cool. Well, all right, everyone. So thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the VoskCoin YouTube channel. Hit the thumbs up, leave a comment, let us know what you think about Mark's mining farm, and we'll see you on the next one.
Go Pat.
Hey, you stuck that one in there, man. Thanks to Scott Alford and his custom PDU for making this mining farm tour possible.